Today on Crafty Brewers.
We did the opposite of what every brewery I've ever worked for has done. I mean, literally, Brian, I had people look at me like I was crazy. Cider is wine.
Really?
Breweries cannot produce cider.
What? Okay.
True story.
There is only one other brewery that has turned me around. And so you have done the same thing. Congratulations, Michelle.
We actually made a cider that I injected with glitter.
So you're like In-N-Out with a special menu if I come in and I...
Oh yeah, you gotta say the secret word and then you get the secret menu, of
And
course.
what is the secret cider?
So...
Welcome to Crafty Brewers, Tales Behind Craft Beer, the podcast that will increase your enjoyment of craft or local beer. And today is cider and the people who make it. We've traveled to the old Irving Park neighborhood of Chicago to go from grain and orchard to glass with Michelle Foik. She's the co-owner of ERIS Brewery and Cider House. We're going to share the stories that make each brewer and cider master unique. I'm beer drinker and hellraiser Brian Noonan, and all my opinions are strictly my own for reasons that will become very clear if they aren't already. Behind the camera is our executive producer, Cody Goff. And as I said, we are at ERIS Brewery and Cider House. That's at 4240 West Irving Park Road in Chicago. ERISChicago.com is the website. Let's say hello to Michelle Foik. Hi, Michelle.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
That was very impressive.
What?
Most of the time when someone starts their podcast and it's about beer, they totally forget that they're at a cidery.
I am a professional. I have done this before, and I'm reminded by all the ciders here in front of us. So, all right, there's a lot of places I could start, and as I was preparing to talk to you,
Yeah.
I was like, where do I start with ERIS? Because there's a million different things, but let's start here. Because I'm sure a lot of people who talk to you, they want to start with, oh, you're female-owned.
Right.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But you are also the first establishment in Illinois that decided to not only be a cider house, but to be a cider house and a brewery and a full-service restaurant, all in one from the day you opened.
Yes.
These three elements were together. Some would say this is an unbelievably bold experiment. What led you and your partner to open this
Right.
big place?
Well, first of all, it's historic.
It is historic.
All
this
right, and
building.
I say historic because during March, it's Women's History Month.
Correct.
And we made history.
There you
Someone
go. Okay.
reminded me that this last year. They're like, you
Oh.
made history. I'm like, wow. Because
Yeah.
you think about all the historians of women-owned and women marching and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff, but we made history.
Yes, you did.
I'm not even that old yet, and I made history.
That's pretty good. What do you got to plan for the rest of your life? Once you peak at being a history maker, where do you go from there? Well, it's all downhill from here.
Absolutely. But no, but Katie and I decided that we're going to open up our own place. And the background's always been brew pub.
Yeah.
So my background's been brew pub with Revolution and Goose Island. So we have these investors because obviously you need money to open something like this up,
Sure.
because I mean, obviously you understand how big the building is,
Yeah,
right?
so we'll get to that.
Okay, good. But what happened was that like Katie's husband was a big person over at Revolution, and he
Okay.
was an investor and he was a part owner, and so he came around and he was just kind of like, hey, I really see something in you and I want to invest in you, and so I want you to open up your own place. And at the time, I was like, nope. Because like, I don't know, like there's a little self-esteem, issue,
Sure.
whatever the case may be. But then all of a sudden it was like, he kept hounding me. And so finally,
All right.
I
I'll
know.
do it.
But we finally got looking at two buildings, and one of the buildings was this.
Okay.
And when we got serious about it, him and I sat down, and he was an owner of a hop farm.
A hop farm. Okay.
Correct. And what he did was he was selling the hop farm to another larger agricultural company, but he was going to stay working there.
Okay.
And that place was in Michigan.
Oh.
So Katie and I spent a lot of time sitting down, putting all the details of our business plan together. And one day I was just like, Katie, why don't you and I open this up? Like, all about she wrote the business plan.
Okay.
Like I might be in the hospitality industry, but she
Right.
wrote the business plan. She was the one that was able to take all the details, all the dreams, all the little like magic and put it down on paper.
Nice.
And so when that came down to it, Nunzino was really busy, and all of a sudden Katie was like, we're going to do this. He's like, great. That's my wife. She wants to do something. And like, let's make it happen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started.
Okay.
Beer has been my passion, but
Yeah, you've worked. Well, let's start because you
Yeah.
did work. You worked for two. Some people may have heard of these breweries, Goose Island and Revolution. They're little startups. They
Very
we have
little.
hope for them
Very little.
someday. So, what did you do for them? Because after that's when you made kind of the left turn or right turn or off ramp into cider. So, how
Yeah.
did you start in? How did you start with Goose and Rev?
So I was 23 years old when I started with Goose. I was working at TGI Fridays in Bedford Park. My first job out of college.
How much flair did you have?
You know, I came in for my training day as a server, and I did have all the recommended pieces of flair.
Nice.
And then later on, my GM looks at me and he's like, you didn't have to do that. I'm like, I wanted to be one with the people.
Yeah. Because the people demand flair.
Exactly. And I want to be part of my server staff. So I worked there for 2.5 years, and I've always been a craft beer fan.
Yeah.
Growing up in Wisconsin, I snuck into the Great Dane when I wasn't old enough, and I would drink their beers there. I also was a big fan of Gray's Brewery.
Okay.
And then something happened. I was in a hospitality class where we're matching matching wine and food.
Okay.
You know, because the wine and food pairing was
Sure,
what I
yeah.
studied. So craft beer blows up. I look into the Reader ad, like the Reader newspaper. Remember when that was around?
Yeah.
And I found an ad for Goose Island looking for a manager. And it was craft beer. And
Nice.
I was talking to somebody about it. They're like, well, you just came back from Spain and you did all this like wine and created a menu for the wine pairing. You could do the same thing with beer. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, craft beer does really well with pairing for dinners. And I'm
Right.
like, all right. So I went in. My first interview at Goose Island was with John Hall.
Okay. It's
You
good
know,
to-
everyone talks about them Budweiser. I'm like,
Yeah.
no. This
No.
was not AB.
No, this was Goose.
Yes, this
And the
is at
man
Highborn.
came in to interview you.
I know,
That's
right?
pretty cool.
Yes, so he interviewed me, and my second interview was Greg Hall. So, and it's funny because everyone always just jumps to AB about them, but
Yeah, you forget. I mean, there was for a long time they were their own thing, and they were doing great work. They still
family
are.
owned.
Yes.
Family owned is what it was.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember one of the first like women that was working for them in a department was Way Frazier, and she was their marketing department. She's one
woman in the whole
one
thing.
woman in the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? So
That
like,
was enough. We
great.
don't need more than
Hey.
one. We only need one woman here.
Here we go.
No, I'm
Once
not.
again,
that wasn't
no, I'm just
me.
kidding.
That
I'm
was
just
them. Listen. I would staff the place with all women, but you know,
We're doers.
it's
we
a
get it
different
done.
time. Yeah, exactly. That's. I look at home. That's thank God for my wife. She gets it all done, and I can take all the glory.
Oh, it's just the opposite in my household.
So you're working at Goose, and then you go to Rev.
Yes.
And for Rev, you were there for a lot of big moments in their evolution.
Yes. So in their evolution, their revolution, all that jazz.
see
Yes.
how we
yes.
do?
Yes. So Josh Deeth and I met. My first day at Goose Island was his last day.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And we finished the day off and we had a beer. And I remember talking to him, and he said that someday he's going to be Goose Island.
Wow. Bold.
Yeah, I
wonder if that
might
was
be
in his
making
exit
this
interview.
up, but I'm telling you, I'm not making this up.
Okay.
And I was sitting there having a Russian Imperial Stout mixed with their Creek at the time, like off the draft. And I was just thinking, oh my God, chocolate covered cherries. Like, this is so good. And Josh was like, yep, someday I'm going to take them over. Someday I'm going to be, Goose Island. I'm going to beat Goose Island.
Okay.
And 7-10 years later, I meet Josh again after Jim Seaback.
Okay.
And Maddie Kemp and Gabriel Bowden, all of these original people that were brewers and managers or serving staff at Goose were like, Foik, you really need to go work at Rev. You need to help him open that up. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that, really? And they're like, no, I think you guys would be a good pair to open up Revolution.
Nice.
So I interviewed with him. And then I interviewed with him again, and I said no. And then I interviewed him again, and I finally said yes. And I just felt like I needed to prove myself again in the brew pub.
Okay.
And so he gave me that opportunity, and we had this clause though, and I love talking about this.
What is the clause? What kind of clause would be in your contract? You can never drink Goose Island again.
No. I mean, he would have liked that in the clause, but no, that's not how it works. Because we both enjoyed a honker's ale, okay?
Sure, there you go.
No, it was, so I watched Josh open up Handlebar, his restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was a very independent restaurant.
Yeah.
And I told him, if you ever get up on Revolution's bar and take the kitchen tickets and say, making it rain in front of all the guests, I will give you my 2-week notice.
Is that he did that at his first place? Wow. All right.
Josh might not remember, but I'm telling you, I've said this in many a podcast, but I'm also like part of that life. But it was different.
Okay.
I walked in with him to partner into making this Revolution into what Goose Island was. And that was more of a corporate place, even though it was family owned.
Sure.
You could have corporate ideals and still be operated as independent.
Well, it's a business. So at some point, yes, it's supposed to be fun to work at a brewery, but we're here to make beer and make money.
Yeah.
That's whether you're family owned or corporate owned, the goals are the same.
Right. And Josh was serious. He was serious. He's like, I know, I really, really want this place to be the next Goose Island. So we did it. We got together and we worked on it, and I was there for 3 years. And
then beer lost its luster, or you heard the siren song of cider and you went up to Michigan to work at Virtue Cider with one of your old friends from Goose Island?
I think I'm just a sucker for startups. I really do. I think I'm a sucker for startups. I like working really hard. I like working a lot of hours. And I like using my own hands.
There you go.
When Greg came and approached me about it, Virtue was a dream in Michigan that was going to be all cider and then using the craft of beer and really bringing on a new flavor profile to all of America or all of Illinois, as you want to see it. And I was intrigued.
So you do that, and then you decide, like you said, you and Katie, you're gonna open your own place, and it's gonna be a cider house, a brewery, a restaurant in this giant Masonic temple.
How ironic, right?
Yes, it's
male-owned Masonic temple.
And here come the ladies. Now, when you opened, there were not, as you mentioned, at Goose, when you first started, there was one woman. Even when you opened, there was not a huge representation of ladies in the business.
Correct.
So not only are you trying to come in and set yourself up, you're doing it in a big way. Were there unique challenges for you guys when, you were starting? I mean, you knew beer people, but cider hadn't really hit yet.
Oh, but it had.
It had?
It had, and that's why I wanted to do cider.
Okay.
So Chicago in 2012, when I was working with Virtue, was a mecca for cider.
Really?
Every cider company in the Midwest and even the West Coast and East Coast actually had their cider being sold in Chicago, and it was selling very well.
Okay. So that lent to adding cider to the
that's one of the reasons why I wanted cider to be more prominent.
Yeah.
The other thing is we have Cider Summit in Chicago, which is a full festival of only ciders, and that happened before we opened up ERIS.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, and Cider Con is in Chicago every other year because it was such a mecca, and it's got a great, we just had a lot of sales, a lot of people distributing cider in this area.
Okay.
So with that being said, I wanted this to be more of a cidery.
Yeah.
But the investors saw me from Revolution and said, you are beer. And beer brought money to the table,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So with that being said, ERIS took on the component of being a brewery and a cider house because the people that invested in us really wanted to see a brewery because that's where they thought the money was going to come from.
And they were wrong.
But, you can't hear my excitement right now, can you?
I can see. As two women starting this off, was there any pushback from the old boys club of the breweries to say, "Come on, ladies, cider and beer. What are you doing?"
No.
That's nice.
No, my entire reputation has been part of the beer scene.
Yeah.
And people know me, have worked with me, know that I live for the idea of promoting whatever it is in the industry. It doesn't need to be mine or it doesn't need to be my brand.
Right.
It could be everything. And so with me, Goose Island was my love. Revolution was my love. But guess what? Half Acre was my love. The new breweries coming in, would come in and I would help anyone that wanted help. I'm a helper.
Yeah.
And then when cider happened, so people used to say, like, you work for so many companies. And I'm like, no, I really don't. I worked for Goose Island, I worked for Revolution, and I worked for Virtue, and now ERIS.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like that many.
But I helped out with a company called, oh my gosh,
What'd they do?
they were a cider company.
Oh, cider.
Wandering Angus. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Wandering Angus. I worked for them. I promote Uncle John's. I helped out Tandem. By promoting them,
Yes.
by drinking them, by being around them. So, I didn't actually work for any of these companies, but for me, if you drink a cider and it's not our cider, you're promoting the cider category.
Yes, that's true.
So the same thing happened in beer. It was like, I just helped out my friends.
Yeah.
Haymarket, people like that.
And you had, like you said, you had a reputation of working not only at a cidery, but at two major breweries. So people probably are like, she knows what she's doing.
The best part about it is that Goose Island spun so many breweries.
Yes.
You've got Mousetrap, so John Laffler.
Right.
You've got Brian Taylor over at Weiner Beer.
Yep.
You've got, trying to think of the other ones,
Yeah, it
but
seems
there's
like
so many.
there's so many people that we talk to. The trail always does end up back at Goose somehow.
Yeah.
Whether they were in, like you said,
Or Rock
Marty's
Bottom.
House, or Rock Bottom, which I used to love, and then they were gone, which is unfortunate.
The evolution of business.
I know, that's how it goes.
It's got nothing to do with the brewers. It's got nothing to do with the beer. It's the
just
evolution of business.
Well, let's take a quick break, because what we do, we're going to take a break, and then I want to talk the specifics of cider. And when you opened, how did you find somebody who could do both? Because I know there's cider makers and I know there's brewers. I have not met someone who is doing both. So we are at ERIS Brewery and Cider House in Chicago on Irving Park Road, ERISChicago.com. Michelle Foik is here. She's one of the co-owners of ERIS. We'll be back and talk more cider in a minute. Hey, we're back with Michelle Foik. She is the co-owner of ERIS Brewery and Cider House in the Old Irving neighborhood of Chicago. ERISChicago.com is the website to go find out all the history of this giant former Masonic temple that now houses the Cider House and the brewery. Okay, we've talked to many brewers about beer. I know there's, it's pretty simple. It's water, hops, and yeast, and then the magic that each brewer puts in it. How is cider made other than just squeezing apples till the juice comes out?
Basically, that's it.
Okay, but then what happens?
No, I'm just kidding. So the magic about cider is this. It's tree to tank with a little bit of yeast. So really, there's only two main ingredients.
Really?
Apples and yeast.
Wow.
We don't use water. It's quite amazing. We don't dilute it with water. The water or the juice coming from the apple is all we use. And then we add the yeast.
Okay.
We fermented. So let's start this over.
Yeah.
Let's think about this. Beer gets brewed.
Correct.
Cider does not.
Okay.
So if you heat cider up, it will not taste well. It will not do well. You've got pectins, you've got different molecules, different ingredients in what the apple produces out of its own juices.
Okay.
So juice likes to stay at a fermentation temperature under 60 degrees.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When you're brewing a beer, you have a saison that loves 79 degrees, right? So if you do that to a cider, you're producing certain esters and certain different types of flavors that are off.
Okay.
So all of our cider stays below 60 degrees as we ferment it.
Now, does that take a different kind of facility than, say, because you brew too, so...
Yeah. The brew house never touches cider.
Okay.
Never touches apples.
Okay.
Everything is downstairs in our building. Everything's downstairs. And the fermentation process happens there. And now outside in our 5,500 gallon tank.
Nice. All right.
We expanded a little bit.
Yeah, I would say. But when you started, you were still pretty big for a startup because you saw the future and said, well, we don't want to scale up. We're going to start big.
Okay, so ERIS is the goddess of chaos.
Yes.
She does everything backwards, forwards, whatever she wants to do. So we did the opposite of what every brewery I've ever worked for has done. We put all the metal, all the steel into the house before we knew we had to use it. Normally you start out with a couple tanks and then you build and then you grow and all that stuff. The way this building is structured, we decided to put all the steel in there first and then grow into it.
Oh, very
So the
nice.
project was very expensive, and it was actually opposite. And when we talked to people about this project, they were just like, I mean, literally, Brian, I had people look at me like I was crazy.
It sounds on paper a little crazy. I'm not going to lie to you. It was, as we mentioned at the beginning, it's a huge undertaking. So, all right. So, are there downstairs? You're brewing over here. You're fermenting over here. How many apples does it take to say? Because you then put the cider in kegs, correct?
We put it in bright tanks first, and then we put them in kegs and package it now.
So, how many apples does it take to produce a keg of cider?
That is a very good question, Brian.
Well,
a
bunch. We'll just
it's
bushel and a peck.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's a bushel.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a bushel. So let's get away from the bushel and the apple.
Okay.
But I can tell you, 5,500 gallons.
Okay.
Of juice can produce quite a bit of cider, but we do it once a month.
Okay, so you're doing 5,500 gallons
once a month.
And you're using, obviously, as we get into the different ciders, you're using different apples, you're using different fruits. How long does it have to ferment?
Yeah, okay, so here we go. Let me do this analogy.
Yes.
So as a brewer, which is not what I do, but as a brewer, you take a beer and you get up at 6 a.m. and you mill in the grain.
Right.
And then you put it in the grist can, and then you put the recipe in, and you make the wort. The wort then goes over to the kettle, you boil, you do all that stuff, okay? I'm really skimming all of this over, obviously, because I'm
There's
sure
a
as
lot
your
to the
brewers out
process,
there, yeah, exactly. So then that actual beer goes into a tank and it sits for 2 weeks, 3 weeks to 4 weeks, depending if it's a lager or an ale, right?
Yep.
And you get one product from it, right?
Correct.
So it's an IPA or a stout or whatever. Let's flip to cider.
Okay.
All right. I get my juice, fresh pressed juice. I add yeast to it, and it ferments for 2 weeks.
Okay.
2 weeks. 10 days, 2 weeks, maybe 14 days. From there, I have 5,500 gallons of juice that I can make any brand I want.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the fun part about cider is that you're not making just an IPA. You can make whatever you want with the base cider that you use.
Okay, so now you have your base cider, and before we taste, there was something that I saw on the ERIS website, erischicago.com, and it talked about the place of cider in U.S. history.
Yes.
So what is the place of cider in U.S. history?
So everywhere in the world, there are more cider drinkers than there are in the United States.
Really?
The cider in the United States has been changed because during Prohibition, the cider apples were burned down to the ground.
That seems counterintuitive. Why would they do that?
Because it was Prohibition. You're not going to make alcohol. And cider was one of the original, beer and cider were one of the original liquids.
Were there particular, because I know you use all different kinds of apples and stuff. Was there one certain kind of apple that they targeted? What was the...
So the cider apples are not edible.
Oh.
So original cider apples are not edible.
Really?
I had experience once. Greg Hall gave me a brown snout.
Okay.
All right, that's a cider apple.
Yeah.
And everybody was watching as I bit into this apple, and literally all the moisture in my mouth went away. I had to use my finger and get into my mouth to get it out of my mouth. It's like taking a bunch of crackers in your mouth and being able to
Oh
whistle.
my God. Okay.
So cider apples have tannins, have structure, have complexity. We use grocery store apples.
Okay.
So they are introductory apples that help to make an introductory cider.
Okay.
But tannins and have this dryness to them that is not considered like a dry. When I say dry with tannins, it means taking the moisture out of your mouth.
Okay.
That's how the cider apples were back then.
All right.
So this made amazing cider that was old school, that had just the flavor profiles of the apples and things on that end, and the sugars from the apples and the acidity from the apples.
Okay.
We manipulate ours by taking apples from the orchard and apples that are bought at a grocery store.
Okay.
So, like, we could have Golden Delicious, we could have Granny Smith, we could have Pink Ladies, we could have Honeycrisp, like those are the apples we use. We use ugly apples in our cider.
Ugly apples.
Ugly apples. The apples that won't make it to the grocery store.
Because you're just pressing them for the juice. Nobody cares what they look like once they're in your glass.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
All right, so we know we have the base cider. That's what we're pressing. That's what we're fermenting for 2 weeks or 4 to 10 days. Now, that's when I'm guessing the magic starts for the cider master here. And who is in charge of the cider? And the brewer too, but there's a cider master who's making all this cider.
So Mark Beery.
Yes.
Can't make that last name up either. Beery.
Perfect.
Definitely a brewer master. He's worked at a couple of different breweries and has been with us for almost, I think like 3 years now.
Oh, nice.
He started as an assistant to our second brewmaster and cider maker. We like to call them the head of liquids.
Okay, I like that.
Yes, because we had to evolve.
Yes.
So you make beer, you make cider, and now you also make like Delta 9 drinks.
Yes, you have some THC stuff too.
Yes, yes.
Is there anything ERIS isn't going to do?
I mean, she's a goddess of chaos.
That's true.
Of course not.
All right,
she's
perfect.
going to try everything. She's going to dabble in something.
So when Mark gets the base cider, he obviously then does what every brewer does, every cider maker. That's where their talents and artistry come in to the thing. So what do we have? We're going to try a couple different ones.
Yeah.
What is this cider?
So the one you're trying right now is called Pepper Jam.
Okay, that's this one, Pepper
Oh,
Jam.
no. Let's go back to that.
Yes, this is the Queen something, correct?
All right, so we're going off the core ciders right now.
Oh, all right.
So definitely off the core ciders.
So you're like In and Upper with a special menu. If I come in and I,
oh yeah, you
if
got
I'm
to
in
say
the
the
know,
secret word,
the secret
and
word,
then you get
okay.
the secret menu. Of
And
course.
what is the secret cider?
So previously there was a cider called Euphoria.
Okay.
And Euphoria is our sweet cider. And when we say sweet, we have a dry cider called Pedestrian.
Okay.
And then we have a semi-sweet. So the wording is so strange because people are like, oh my God, what is semi-sweet? What does sweet mean? Whatever.
Right.
Doesn't matter. We added vanilla to the Euphoria.
Yes.
To create a sweetness in your mind and in your nose. So Euphoria was barreled then in some Amburana barrels.
And for the uninitiated, myself included, what is an Amburana barrel?
Amburana barrels are from Brazil. Ooh. And they have, actually, I'm sorry. Let me take that back.
Okay.
Amburana
Cody,
barrels.
take that out.
Sorry.
Cody's drunk right now. He's drinking so many ciders.
Do you see how much cider I have?
He's got a lot of
For
cider.
those watching on YouTube or Spotify, this episode's gonna get real good, real fast.
I love it. I love it. I love it. This is how you make a really good podcast,
It is.
right?
You gotta,
this is how you get everybody lubed up.
So we have not had one where we didn't start drinking. So you gotta. That's part of the deal. So Amburana, back to Amburana.
Yes, Amburana barrels from Argentina. So they're Argentinian, and they have the wood is actually this oak that carries off baking spice flavors.
Okay.
So Amburana is something new. Nunzino, my business partner's husband, brought these barrels into the United States, and we've been using them.
Nice.
And so Euphoria, the vanilla apple cider, is now in these barrels that create a baking flavor profile. And what I say by that is cinnamon, nutmeg. But there's none of that in there. None of it. It's all
just
comes
from
from the
wood.
barrel. Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes.
And how long does it stay in the barrels?
So cider is really acidic. So in this case, it was about 3 to 6 months.
Oh, that's not that long.
Not very long.
Okay, as opposed to stouts that can stay in there for a couple years.
Correct.
All right, so
Correct.
Let's try this. Ooh, I like that.
You do?
That is good. Yes. All right. Before we try that, let's get this out of the elephant in the room, because we came in and Michelle and I were talking, and just like I've said on this podcast, certain styles of beer are not my favorite. I've tried them, and I had tried a lot of ciders. And I told you my wife and daughter love
Correct.
your ciders.
Yeah.
And we started talking, and I was like, it's not that I am against ciders, it's just the ones I've tried, they weren't for me.
Right.
And so the more we talked, and you did what good bartenders at all craft breweries do, I mentioned that I didn't like sour beers. And you said, hold on.
That sparked
That was
totally in my brain because
Yeah.
at first I'm like, okay, you asked me, like if I'm a
How
craft
do
beer
you sell me?
drinker,
Yeah.
how do I sell it to you? And I'm like, right away went to Van Mojo
Right.
because Van Mojo has mosaic hops.
Okay.
So that's relatable to you
Sure.
because IPAs have mosaic hops.
Right.
It's like the number one most special hops in the world, But then we add blueberries and it's going to be dry and tart or sweet depending on the blueberry, right?
Okay.
But then you're like, I don't like sours. I'm like, oh.
That was it.
Yeah, like you said. I'm like, nope. You said you
Yep.
like ciders from the cideries. From
Right,
the
because
apple
I love
farms.
apples and apple cider, and I've had blended apple ciders, and I like all of those. So
Yeah.
I was like, why am I not liking cider? I should like cider.
So Euphoria
Yes.
is our semi-sweet cider that we added vanilla. And so that's more like a gala apple, which you said I actually enjoy
Yes,
gala apples
yes.
over Granny Smith is what pedestrian
Too
is.
tart. So that was the key. The ones I had
Yes.
tried were too tart. I didn't care for them. This glass used to be filled with Euphoria. That's how, so Cody knows I'm not lying. Now, so now it's filled with something else. But that I'm sure you have to do that with the beers too, with the ciders. People come in, I've never had a cider. I don't know. Usually I drink this. How do I get
You
approached?
have to be able to explain it.
Yes, and you have such a portfolio of different ones that there are ciders for everybody. So this one is the Euphoria in the barrel, and it tastes delicious.
Yes.
Let's go to this one because I took a little sip of this one, and this one is crazy. I love it because. Go ahead and explain it. Tell us what it is.
That Brian said he likes some sweeter. Like he likes, and when I say sweeter, I'm not even talking
Yeah,
about
not
sweet,
syrupy,
right?
yeah.
No, but you like real apple cider,
Yes,
non-alcoholic apple cider.
Correct.
So you're getting the apple flavor.
yes,
So this is our pepper jam.
yes.
So pepper jam is the idea of adding a fruit along with the apples and then adding arbol chilies.
Mm-hmm.
So the first year we ever did this, it was strawberries.
Okay.
And it was successful. But
Yeah.
the peach this year
It's
brought a
it's
lot
the real
more
deal.
sweetness, and then the arbol peppers has this nice warmth. It's not spicy. We do not use that word spicy.
So because you do taste the peppers, and it's
Yeah.
there's a little heat there from the peppers. So how, for people who would say spicy incorrectly, what adjective would you use to describe the peppers?
Take 2 sticks of big red gum and put it in your mouth, and that's the heat
Okay.
that you get from the cider.
It is, because the weird thing is, I like pepper jam, like actual pepper jam.
Right.
So this is phenomenal, and I'm with any kind of spicy food, anything like that. This would be. Did you try it?
No. Can you smell the peppers? Maybe I didn't give you that one.
I do smell the pepper, I think.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's the
Okay,
one.
that's-
You know, it's funny, like, a lot of beers with heavy adjuncts that we've tried really can hit the nose overwhelmingly. None of these, like, blow up my nose. Is that just a component
No,
of
it's
cider?
actually what we do. No, I'm just kidding. It's what we do. We try to make sure that all the senses are there for what you need, but not overwhelm it, because that's not a balanced beer, cider, whatever. I like having a balance. One of my biggest gripes in the beer industry
Yeah.
is not having a balanced beer.
That's, as we've talked to people, that's everybody's striving for that. Some achieve it, some come close, some are off.
Yeah.
But it is a nice. It does leave that. There's that heat that if you like anything with that kind of heat, it's really good.
Yeah.
And it's completely different than from the Euphoria.
Yes.
Because the Euphoria, you do get that vanilla flavor, but again, not a cloyingly sweet, like you got to scrape your tongue. It's just,
Correct.
It's like, oh, this tastes like an apple that has a little bit of vanilla on it.
I have a question about the way it hits the tongue. So we kind of know how to taste beer from the show, and different beers hit different parts of your mouth. Do most ciders hit the same part, or do they hit different parts? Like, is there a difference when you're drinking cider, like the technique of drinking cider and enjoying it the right way, different than beer?
Cider is wine. It really is. Yeah, we have a wine license.
What?
We have
Okay.
a wine manufacturing
Really?
Out of
license.
necessity?
Out of legality. Like, we have to have a winery license to be able to produce cider. Breweries cannot produce cider.
What?
Okay.
True story. True
You
story.
have thrown Cody into a tizzy.
I know. No, if you want to make cider in a brewery, you have to have a brewery manufacturing license and a winery manufacturing license. You can't have the retail license that we have also.
Okay.
So you can do it. I think there's a couple of different ones that have tried.
Yeah.
But no, we are, cider is under wine. I know that like Middlebrow, our friends over at Middlebrow, they make wine and they make beer.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. And they also make, the wine is a natural wine.
Really?
So Middlebrow makes a natural wine and a beer.
Okay.
So their license, they could make cider with that license, but they don't. So they make the natural wine instead.
Okay. They don't make cider because they know you'd come over and wreak havoc?
Actually, we are friends with them. They were the ones that canned our first cider ever
Nice.
for us while COVID happened.
Okay.
So it was
Very
amazing.
nice.
We brought over all these kegs of Van Mojo in 16-ounce
Oh, my
cans,
God.
and they canned it with us. Yes.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And it's, all right, when we have 5 different ciders here.
Yes.
What are the trends? We talk with brewers about beer trends that come and go and things like that. What are the trends in ciders that either you have represented here or that you think are coming down the pike?
Oh, goodness. Okay, so I've heard peach is going to be one of them. Peach is
Okay.
like a big buzzword right now in the cider world, even though I don't know a lot of cideries that use it. The other one that I saw was tropical.
Oh,
That's another one that comes
Sounds
up
good.
that people are. But majority of people that think about cider is about apples.
apples.
It's like the pure apple, whether it's going to be the sweet apple, the semi-sweet, the semi-dry, the dry.
Okay. This may be a dumb question, but that's what I'm paid for, dumb questions. So with the jam, the pepper jam,
Yeah.
it's peaches. So are the peaches processed the same way that the apples would be for Euphoria? Did you
Yes.
take that many
So in a
peaches and mush
sense,
them? And
Yeah, you would do the same thing. But one thing that ERIS does, and we do it because Michigan makes us local.
Okay.
And so all of our apples come from Michigan.
Nice.
We have 2 different orchards. We work with River Ridge and we work with Peterson's Farms.
okay.
And we get our apples pressed and delivered to us, and we work with that. Our other brands, our cherries, they do not come from Michigan.
Okay.
So we use more of a concentrate on that because they don't grow all year long in
Right.
the Midwest.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That makes
And
sense.
To stock that much, it ruins
Oh,
the
geez.
idea of things. So
Yeah.
we get it from the West Coast.
Okay. But the process is kind of the
It's actually-
fermentation is the same and
Oh no.
oh no.
Okay.
See?
I like where you're going. So if we wanted to ferment the peaches
Mm-hmm.
and the apples together, that flavor profile you're getting right now is
Yeah.
going to be completely different.
Really?
Because when you ferment something, you're taking away the sugar.
Right.
And so during that process, the alcohol is made, but the peach has a lot more of the sweetness coming out in our pepper jam.
Yeah.
If I were to ferment that, you wouldn't have that. You'd have a peach wine.
Okay, so
Does
how,
that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense. So how does then? I guess it makes sense to the point where then how does it turn into cider?
Cider is apples. 51%
So
of
what
apples.
What are we calling?
So pepper jam is a hard cider.
a hard
Yes.
hard cider. Okay.
It's a hard cider with peaches,
With
arbol
peaches.
peppers, and apples.
Oh, and apples. So apples are in there.
Correct.
All right.
So it's really crazy in the cider world because cider is at least 51% apples has to be
Okay,
created as cider.
okay.
But the other ingredient that's in cider is perry or pears.
Yes.
So a cider can also be a pear. And for
Okay.
a pear cider or a perry
Yeah.
to be real, it has to be 51% pear
Okay.
pears. I don't know where that comes from. I've never
I don't either.
studied it. I've never understood it. But apples and pears are in the same category as cider.
Huh.
And if you make a blueberry wine and it's
Yes.
51% blueberries, it's now a wine. It's not in the cider category. Cider is only apples and pears,
The more you know.
right? Yeah, blowing everyone's mind right now.
I am so happy right now.
Yeah, it's like
This is like the best day I've had all month. It's so good.
there's so much there because you hear we learn stuff on talking to brewers. This is
Yeah.
all new to us.
Right.
This is like, wow, okay, this is very cool.
Yeah.
So how when as the co-owner, your focus obviously is on ciders, but you also have a brewery.
Yes.
So where do you walk that balance for when people come into ERIS, they're going to sit down and we haven't even touched on, but they're going to sit down and look at your food. They're going to have dinner. You got everything, food. People rave about it. People in my house also rave about it. So I know I'm not lying. But how do you decide, okay, we're going to have X amount of ciders and X amount of beers, or this style of beer, maybe it complements these kind of ciders, and that's what we're looking for,
yes.
or how do you do that?
So, the brewery right now is lacking. We are pushing out so much cider right now
Yeah.
that I believe right now on tap we only have 2 beers that are ours.
Okay. 3. I think you have 3
beers,
because I
yes.
tried 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly. So we have a Schwartz beer,
Yep.
and we have a stout, an oatmeal stout, and then we also had a collaboration Hefeweizen.
Yes.
When we first started, we had 5 beers on tap and maybe 9 ciders because we really wanted to focus on the
Sure.
ciders. One of the special things that we do with our beer and our cider is that we create blends. And
Okay.
these blends are so much fun because when you were growing up, do you remember snakebites or black velvets?
Yes.
We keep that on our menu because we have a lot of fun. It was the employees.
Oh, really?
The people that we work with are people that keep the 4 walls up. They would come down at the end of their shift and they would be like, hey, can I blend this IPA with this cider? And we're like, what? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, all right, let's try it. And so all of a sudden we had all these amazing brands of blends that we started putting on the menu.
Okay.
So like right now, one of the blends that we have is with the stout. We add our blush cider, which is cherries.
Ooh, okay.
So it's like a chocolate covered cherry. So it's
Mark
a
that
50-50.
down, Cole.
Yeah,
Oh
right?
my God.
Right. That was the other thing about having a cidery in a brew house. Like
Yes.
we can make these snake bites, which are fantastic.
That
So
sounds
the cherry in the stout is really great.
good. Okay.
Actually, the pepper jam and the stout is like a spicy mole. I know, because dark
I'm
chocolate.
not going home tonight.
yeah, we gotta.
I'm
let's
just
wrap
gonna-
this up. There's a bar
I'm
waiting.
going to drink everything on your menu.
Another great brand is taking our IPAs and adding a little bit of the sweeter ciders to it, so
Okay.
it mellows down. We have one that has the blush along with our IPA, our hazy IPA.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
so there is. So when you are talking to your brewer, and you say, okay, these are the ciders, or he's saying to you, these are the ciders I think I'm going to make, and I'm thinking of these beers. Can you suggest, well, hey, maybe we try this one to pair with this? Is that kind of part of the give and take?
The nice
or
part. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no,
the
that's
nice
all right.
part about ERIS is that it's a collaboration with
Yeah.
all of us. So when we're making up cider aspects of things, like we're like, okay, pepper jam is the pepper jam that you're talking about. Like
Yes.
you put that on pork, as a culinary experience.
Yeah.
So a lot of our ciders come from a culinary experience. The brew pub, though, we like making brew pub styles.
Yeah.
Like the styles that we have on draft don't need to be like, oh, it's going to sell in the market.
Right.
It's a pub beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've been really lucky to have hazies. We've been really lucky to have a Schwartz beer, oatmeal stout. Happy Pills is our Pilsner that we don't have on draft right now,
Yeah.
but it has done well. We've actually threw it out into the market for a little while, just for shits and giggles,
Yeah.
and it did well. So
Do you have, when you do that, is because ERIS is so associated with ciders, are there people who are a little, they question like, well, they do ciders really well. What's the deal with the beer? Is there ever that kind of confusion?
there's total confusion all the time because it's ERIS.
All right,
It's chaos,
okay.
It's
Yes,
like
true.
the goddess of chaos. But I do think that in the beginning, people were coming in because we were a brewery.
Yep.
And then cider became our focus, but our beer is really damn good.
Yeah.
Mark came from Lagunitas, came from Elevator, and he's got a really knack for it. Owen and Tyler are his assistants or another part of the membership of our department.
Sure.
and they're making great beers.
Nice.
Owen just made a great pale ale, Tooth and Nail, that we want to recreate.
Yeah.
But we do think about the idea of how can we do a pairing with both of them. But really, the guys, we never mentioned to the guys what they should be making.
They just
as
go
beer.
and do it.
No, beer is just done. ERIS Cider is a collaboration, though, with the idea of like, hey, maybe we should make strawberries and rhubarb, like a strawberry rhubarb pie.
Yeah, okay.
And that's our straw barbarella during the summer.
Nice.
We have one coming out that's called Passion Project, and has passion fruit and apples and all that kind of stuff. So, like, culinary-wise, we stay with the ciders.
Yeah.
Beers, go, man.
They
Whatever
go
you guys
crazy.
want to do.
Nice. Well, you brought up something before when we were talking. you, as you mentioned, you guys were brewing beer from the start. You actually won an award for a hazy IPA. And then, I guess going along with the Goddess of Chaos deal, you decided never to make it again. Hey, we won an award. Am I wrong?
We never decided not to make it again.
Oh, okay.
We attempted it so many
And
times.
you couldn't recreate
but
it?
The Goddess of Chaos was not allowing us to make it happen.
All right.
In 2018, Haley Shine was our brewer.
Right.
So it was 3 women at the helm of ERIS when we first opened up. And I remember not liking hazies because it was a fad, or at least I thought it was a fad.
There you go.
And Haley also was like, no, we're not going to do this. Like, we're going to stay with traditional beers and all that. So then we finally she was told, you got to do what the kids like. Otherwise, they're not going to come in. You know, and
okay.
it makes sense. You got to be part of the trend, right?
Sure.
Or part of the fad. So Kaylee made a beer, a hazy beer. And she was learning through one of her friends. And we were downstairs. And I remember before we even got open, she's making this beer. It's a hazy. And apparently she was 1 day early on the dry hop.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So she went up the ladder, put the bucket of dry hop into the tank downstairs, and it exploded like putting a memento into a bottle of Pepsi. And it just went woof. But the problem is that all that oxygen came out at the same time.
Okay.
And so it hit Haley. She went down the ladder and went outside, and she was just breathing really hard. And I saw her go outside. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, ugh. And then all of a sudden we went downstairs, and there's this gusher of this hazy IPA everywhere. And so, like, Haley and I were there at the time, and we had to clean up the entire mess. Like, I'm not a brewer, but you know what? Physical work is, like, something I can do.
Yeah.
That was a long damn day.
I can only imagine.
So when the product actually came out, Haze was her name.
Okay.
Haley.
Yep.
Haze. Foik is my last name.
Yep.
So it was named Foiken Haze. And it came out as a hazy IPA.
Okay.
It was amazing. It had malt, it had hops, it had just this amazing flavor. So once again, for shits and giggles, we're like, let's just send it off to GABF along with our Pilsner, along with our Saison. And I remember being at a wedding when GABF was happening.
Right.
Haley went out there.
Okay.
The last category of the night was the new hazy IPA category.
Oh.
And people are walking out the door. And Haley was walking out the door because she didn't win anything in anything else. And bronze medal goes to ERIS Brewery and Cider House, Haley Shine. And she turned around and she's like, fuck. And she came back and she got on stage and we won the bronze medal.
Very nice.
Yes. I'm at this wedding and my phone's blowing up and I'm thinking, oh shit, did we win for our Pilsner or did we win for our Saison? Foiken Haze. I'm like, no possible way. 2 people that hated that category and she did it.
And now you can't go back and have things exploding every week.
Okay, we can't go to exploding things, and we also could never recreate that recipe.
Oh my God.
Haley tried again, and we did it again, and it was good, but it wasn't exactly that. And then we had a new brewer come in, Joe Flores from Lagunitas, and he tried.
Couldn't do it.
Well, guess what? Our brew house was cursed. Seriously.
Because?
Let's put it this way. Not enough water was getting into the wort
Okay.
when we were making the wort. So the wort would have dry patches. So we had grain that never reached water.
Oh.
So we weren't getting the amount of malt, amounts of sugars and grains that we needed.
Okay.
Every batch was always different. Every time we worked on something was wrong because the brew house was wrong.
See, again,
Clogs.
the goddess of chaos
I mean, she shows up all the time.
all the time.
I don't know why we named her that.
I don't know. Listen, you got to go back to the start for that. Before we get to the final 4 questions, there's a bottle of Malort here, which is terrifying me, and a giant bottle, which looks like a very fancy, some sort of very fancy cider.
It's called Malört.
Malort.
So CH Distillery makes Malort, or Jepson Malort.
Jepson Malort.
And we had really good friends there, and they gave us, at the start, 2 barrels of barreled aged Malort.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we took our base cider, which is very dry, very tart, and we threw it into Malort barrels to see what happened.
Okay, and?
We are on our 5th year of making the cider,
Wow.
and it's a cult classic.
I believe I have one. No, do I not? I believe
you do.
it
It's
is.
going to be the very light one, the very light and hazy one.
That one.
This one?
That is it.
Oh, interesting. It's the lowest one that I've been drinking the most of.
So I'd love to know, Cody, what aroma do you get from that cider? Go ahead and swirl it around.
Yeah, that's
if you can.
Malort. That is definitely a Malort. So, can you explain what Malort is for anybody that doesn't know who's listening?
Yes, if they're not
It's
from
a
Chicago.
If you're not
thing.
from Chicago, you don't
The
know
Chicago
it. I
handshake.
get it. So Malort is a type of brand of liqueur that is originated in Chicago.
Right.
The characteristics of Malort to certain people, not to me, is gasoline and grapefruit skins.
That sounds about right.
No, it's not.
Okay.
No.
It's not.
It's like the whites of the grapefruit skins. That's all it is. It's not gasoline. It's not anything. But it is a very special recipe that only happens in Chicago. It was sold down to Florida for a hot minute, and then it came back to Chicago because it just makes sense here.
Yeah.
We consider it the Chicago handshake, which is actually PBR and Malort.
Right.
So, but in ERIS, we make a Discordian handshake,
Ah,
which is our cider with the Malort.
very nice.
So once a year in about November, the cider is ready to be processed and bottled and also on draft.
Yes.
And then every other year, because of cider cone, we put it on tap in February.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because no other cider maker anywhere is making a barreled aged Malort cider.
That is true.
And that's a bit of a trend in a couple places in the city. Like different bars experiment with different things you can do with Malort. Like there's a bar in Wrigleyville that makes different flavored Malorts that you can have and things like that.
Oh, we sell there. Nisi's Lounge. They always do a bunch of really cool Malort infused
Really?
bottles. Yes.
Okay.
They've done it for a long time, and they sell our cider there too.
And then Cody goes in and asks for peppermint, and they just throw them right out the door.
Actually,
right
I
into
think
the
during
alley.
the holidays, they have actually made a peppermint
A
Malort.
peppermint Malort?
They did.
I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, I was gonna say.
I have actually bartended there, guest bartended for fundraisers. They let teams for certain fundraisers go and guest bartend, and then all the tips go to the fundraiser. So I bartended Nisai like once a year the last like 5 years.
Next time you do that, can I be there too? Because I'll help you bartend.
Oh,
That would be a lot of
There
fun.
you go. That would
I'm
be
not
good.
a guest. I mean, nobody cares about me, but it'd be so much fun.
you think people care about me? I mean,
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Stop.
Wow.
So
Now,
this is gonna be the best episode.
Look
looking
at how
episode.
your head, I can watch. It's inflating like a balloon.
I'm gonna spend 45 hours editing. Actually, I'm kind of dreading editing because you talk about these delicious flavors. When I edit a show and people are describing the flavors so like vividly, I always like halfway in, I'm like, I gotta get a beer.
Yeah.
And then I'm always in my kitchen and I cannot finish editing without a beer. This episode, I'm gonna have to get like a pie and God knows what
Or
else.
did you
like
just
a-
get some 4-packs of ERIS cider?
Exactly.
Before we move on, quick lightning round of the 2 other beers I have, or the 2 other ciders I have.
Yes,
Wow,
what-
really
yes,
used to
what are
the.
those?
There it is.
That's it. I told you.
This is a whiskey and this is a vodka. No, so what is the darker one that's here?
So you have the Van Mojo.
Yes.
So that is going to be mosaic hops and blueberries. So we add those to the apples, and then the aroma is killer. That is such an amazing aroma. I'm actually going to open this up so that
I was hoping I wouldn't have to sit here with an empty glass.
Brian smell
you.
this. You can
Well,
smell it.
actually, that could be a problem. One of us doesn't have a sense of smell.
What?
No sense of smell.
For real, real?
For real. That's why, as much as I love beer and I've done a couple home brews, I can't smell it. So it's I've never had a sense of smell.
Wow. All right.
But I can taste. I can taste like the basics, and sometimes like the peppers came through. I don't know what there was a. I breathed it in, and there's a tingle. So
Yes.
it's something.
That makes it's the
something
oil.
got me.
the oil
So I
got
do.
you.
I do sometimes. But yes, unfortunately, I miss out on probably more than half of the enjoyment of these
Well, I'm
things
glad
by
that you
not
still
smelling them.
like beer. I like that,
I
you
love-
like cider still
Yes.
without having the nose, because the nose is the most important. Sometimes the most important part. The thing about the euphoria is the vanilla smell actually makes you think that it's going to be sweeter, but you still liked it. So
I
I'm
loved
glad
it.
happy
I
about
loved
that.
it. So yeah.
I like
Do you
the smell.
smell?
It's nice
Cody?
and fruity. Yeah.
it's got this amazing like candy smell.
Yeah, but again, not overpowered. Like it, we had a peanut butter stout in one of the recent breweries, and I smelled it, and I'm like, I feel like I opened a jar of peanut butter. None of these blow it out, and the taste of all of them is so balanced. Like I know which one is drinking Malort. I know which one I'm drinking. It has a little bit of blueberry in it, but like they all taste like cider.
Yeah.
They
It's
taste like
crazy.
cider. I get the blueberries in there. Something else I'm getting, and I don't know what it is.
I think that's
It's
the
good.
hops.
Oh, maybe that's
I
it.
think that's what you're getting is that slight dry bitterness of the hops.
Yes, but it's not the kind of hoppy bitterness that you'd expect if you drink like an IPA.
Right, 'cause it's
they're
balanced.
very balanced. Once
I
again,
don't like IPAs, and I am about to finish this cider.
Well, and that's a big difference too. Even though I say I try to attract the IPA crowd with the Van Van Mojo, it's not an IPA.
I was going to say there's not that.
There's no IPA
There's
to it.
something. There's something there, but it's not a. Hey, there's hops in here.
It's all marketing. It's all me saying, "Hey, you know Mosaic hops? Yeah, I know Mosaic hops." So that's all
Drink
it is. I just
this.
had like drink this, you
Drink
know.
this.
So no, it doesn't taste anything like it. None of our stuff tastes like a beer.
There is only one other brewery that has turned me around.
Horse Thief Hollow.
Horse Thief Hollow, because my sour stance is well known, and I make no apologies. But they said we have one sour that you'll like, and I said, all right, I'm game. Bring it on. I'll try anything. And the thing was, it didn't have that overpowering tartness, and so you have done the same thing. Congratulations, Michelle.
Yay!
You have not changed my mind on cider, but made me appreciate why the ones I had I didn't like, and why the ones I like. So it's like, oh, that's perfect. So thank you for that.
You're very
I
well.
will say for the last beer, I know this is the barrel aged one.
Oh, you have the Thornton Hears a Who.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and one of my son's favorite books, almost close. And this one does hit the nose pretty vividly. And I'm getting there's some alcohol here, but it doesn't taste too boozy. Like it's so good.
It's crazy because it's from Thornton Distillery. So we do a lot of collaborations, like once again, CH Distillery, Thornton's Distillery.
Right.
We always find local people that we're working with. Their barrels, they gave us two.
Okay.
One was very wet, so that means a lot of whiskey
Lot
still
of
in there.
whiskey.
And the other one was decently wet.
Okay.
And so when we blended them together, you get that aroma from the oak, the vanilla, and then also like that idea of whiskey just coming straight out. But one thing we've never done before is back sweeten it. So we actually took some more apple
Okay.
and added it to that cider to balance it out more.
oh. Okay.
Otherwise, it would be as dry as the Malört was because we only used the base cider.
Now wait, I had never heard of a barrel aging situation being wet. So does that happens? Does that happen with beer, with barrel aged beer too? There can be a little bit. You don't go and like, I don't know, like stick some kind of like sponge
It's the
in there.
devil's share. That's the evaporation part, but
Yes.
there's still sometimes
Angel's share.
angel share.
Yeah, that's the
yeah.
that's the
It just-
evaporation. Yeah, that's the angel share. Yeah.
Angel share. You're
We could
correct.
call this devil's share though, because that's like left in the barrel.
It sounds more
Oh my God,
chaotic.
we actually just came up with a new term.
Yeah.
The devil's
Mark
share
it down. The devil's share is what's
is
left
the
in the
wet
barrel.
and the angel share is when it evaporates off
Yes.
the top and just falls away.
There you go. Trademark, copyright.
I think
Crafty
so. Oh, yeah,
Brewers.
you got it,
ERIS,
like-
we'll do both.
We'll figure
split
it out. We'll make money
figure
on
it
both
all
ends.
out.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like that, though.
It's very good. So thank you again. I am yes. I am. My wife's going to be so excited when I come home and go, hey, look at me. I brought you some cider. When
But
you're not
not
going to
only-
drink it, I'll go, ha ha.
I was going to say you could share a glass with her now.
Yes, we definitely
Yes,
shall.
yes. I like it.
All right. We always ask brewers, and this is the first time we get to ask a ciderer, the
Cidery.
final four questions, the big questions we ask everybody. Now, I will I will adapt these to cider. So you said because you guys look at the ciders from a culinary standpoint, is there a cider hill that you will die on? We asked the brewers this, a style that maybe, even if people are clamoring for it, and it's probably different with ciders than beers, that you say, no, that's not going to happen here at ERIS. So for reference, most brewers say they will never brew with lactose. They hate milkshake IPAs. They don't want to brew them, and that is their go-to answer on like 90% of our answers.
real?
Are that for real.
Wow. Okay.
So that is 90%.
So you've been to a lot of true breweries.
Who are we talking to? We talk to big timers
Right,
like you.
exactly.
So is there that equivalent in the cider world, or is that?
We actually made a lactose cider. So
Really?
Yeah, we did a long time ago. It wasn't what everybody expected it to be. It was creamy, but it wasn't sweet.
Okay.
No. ERIS is the goddess of chaos.
So you will do whatever.
We actually made a cider that I injected with glitter, and I
Like
pissed
gold
off.
Schlager?
Well, that's gold. Yeah, I'm not
know,
going to
but
spend the time with gold,
A
but
glitter Schlager.
yeah. So there are cider makers that are traditional, and then there's cider makers like us.
Okay.
And I wanted to stay on the traditional end by being introductory. But then one day it was like, well, I kind of think glitter in a bottle of cider would be really fun.
It'd be pretty.
Right. And it was. It was super pretty. So our punk cider, which is our upside down pineapple cake cider for our birthday.
Okay.
So you got pineapples, you got a little bit of caramel, you got a little bit of cherries. But it wasn't too sweet.
Okay.
But when we bottled that, it was very simple for me to inject some glitter. And so when people the bottle itself is like, the label is upside down backwards. So
Yeah.
what is that called when you have something that you can read upside down? Like you flip the
Or
bottle.
you invert it.
Inverted, yes. But there's a word for it, and I
I
can't think
don't
of it
know.
either. Don't even worry about it.
Ambigram.
So we were like, okay, the label itself, if you put it upside down, is the same label.
Then the glitter.
Right. And they didn't know it was glitter in there. So we were like, instructions. Look at the label this way, look at the label that way, and then pour your cider.
Okay.
And so when people opened up the bottle, they poured the cider, they're like, ooh, it had glitter in it. So I am an abomination of everything everyone doesn't want to do that's traditional.
Well, I'll be honest. That is the first time anybody's mentioned I'm not putting glitter in my beer, in my beverage again, in my liquid. So there you go. Another first,
You had no
another
breweries?
history maker for ERIS.
You've had no breweries that put glitter in their beer?
No.
Not in Illinois. I don't know anyone that's done it in Illinois
No.
or Wisconsin, to be honest.
Yeah,
there was some glitter beer
even
for
the
a
people
while.
we talked to in Milwaukee, no glitter,
Yeah.
no glitter
Wow.
so far.
Like I said.
So
Got it.
we mentioned the hazy IPA, so that would kind of fill this. A beer or a cider that you made that you'll never brew again. It's that hazy because you can't replicate it, right?
And we've tried, and we'll keep trying, I guess, to try to make that damn beer. But yeah, I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
So number 3, you're off the clock. Do you go to a cider, whether it's one of yours or a different, or do you go to a beer, whether it's one of yours or something different? Your go-to off-the-clock beverage. Maybe it's
I always
neither.
go to a cider. No, I go to a cider. I can honestly say I love our cider. Like
Okay.
I would always pick our cider over anybody else's cider. But there is 2 cider companies that I do enjoy. I mean, there's a couple of cider companies that I enjoy drinking,
Okay.
you know? So this is a tough question. I don't know how to answer
Yeah.
it.
Well,
Damn it.
then don't.
Okay, I'm not.
She's not gonna. That's it. First time.
That's
another
a first,
history.
another first on Crafty Brewers.
Another first. Somebody refusing to answer the question. This is going to be an easy question for you.
Yay.
Because you've already mentioned you make the ciders based on a culinary menu.
Yes.
Pick your favorite cider and the best food pairing for it. We already kind of talked about pepper jam going with something, but what would you recommend if I were to come in and I say, okay, I'm going to order dinner
Yes.
and I want a cider to do it?
Van Mojo.
Okay.
So our blueberry mosaic top cider, yes. That one. With our peanut butter pie.
Really?
Yes.
Ooh.
So we've won the Brew Pub Shootout in Illinois.
I saw the trophy outside.
Yes. 2 years in a row, we've won first place for pedestrian and our ricotta corn cake, our pound cake. Ooh. So we won that with an apple compote. That was the first year that we won
Sounds
that
good.
with every other brewery out there.
Okay.
The second year it was our Van Mojo with our peanut butter pie.
Ooh.
It's like biting into peanut butter and jelly. It is so good. And then last year we did shrimp and grits.
Oh, I love shrimp and grits.
Yeah. With our pedestrian, and we got second place, and we got third place for the best food pairing.
All right, ERIS obviously on a roll. Nothing is going to stop the ladies and the agents of chaos, the goddess of chaos. That's good. All right, now I have to know though, for the pepper jam, what would you recommend to pair with? Either maybe you just pair with something you make at home or something on the menu here.
Well, I'll be honest. I want to brine my turkey
That's
for
your
Thanksgiving.
brine turkey. Okay.
Yes, for Thanksgiving. But if I had on our menu right now, the pepper jam would probably go really well with. Let me think.
Dun 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 dun.
Dun dun dun. The pork chop.
Ooh, that sounds good.
We have a really nice pork chop with the apple slaw and carrots.
Ooh.
So I think the pepper jam would go really well with that. Also, I think Euphoria would go really well with that too.
There's so much that will go with so much.
I'm dying
A whole
over
new
here.
world.
I'm dying over here.
You know what I'm excited about? Not only that we had a great conversation with you, Michelle, but that my mind has been opened to another way of drinking. Because as much as I love beer, and I'm unapologetically a beer drinker, man cannot live by beer alone. And I know that's sacrilege, Cody. And you'll probably drum me out of the podcast. Next week, there might be a whole different host because I said this. But this is really, it's a very nice change of pace. It's something that, you can mix into your enjoyment rotation and say, there's a time where, if I'm outside, if I'm here, if I want this, if I want that taste, it immediately brings me to an autumnal feeling, which is my favorite time of the year.
Yeah.
So anytime I can have something with that apple flavor or, well, I'm not going to lie, even the peach or the blueberry or the peppers, but it brings up, it makes you feel good. It's a nice reminder, even without being able to enjoy the smells of it, the flavors, the taste, the feel of it, it's really good. Thank you for being here. This was very enlightening. Cody, have we been this educational before?
I'm losing my fucking mind over here. Like, this episode needs to stop. I can't, I can't.
I'm not going to lie. I really love the double share.
Double share?
I think that
Let's work on
needs
it.
to be trademarked for sure because that makes sense to me about the wetness of a barrel.
Yes,
if
it
you have a
stays
lot
at
of
the
liquor in
bottom
it.
and
Exactly. Angel share, double share. I love it.
If you're listening and your mouth is watering, email us. I'm gonna put a poll on Spotify and I'm just gonna say, is your mouth watering when you listen to this episode? And I will let you know.
It better be.
I will let you know what they say because I all I want to do is go to your kitchen right now and order everything on the menu.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, it's pretty late. Maybe peanut butter pie.
I know, right? With the little Van Mojo.
Well, thank you, Michelle.
You're very welcome. I wanted to interject really quick.
Please do.
Cody, if you need a new partner.
A co-host?
Yeah.
That's Cody.
I
handles
know. I'm
the
looking
hiring.
at you because I don't want Cody
don't
to be
look
like,
at him.
I want to see your reaction first. I'm all there.
I'm
here for you.
You're in
just
it?
FYI, I'm
You're
in.
All right. Listen.
I'm just kidding, Brian.
No.
I love you to death.
I love it. No, listen. I've learned that I don't know everything. So now
Nothing like a woman to tell you what she really thinks.
tell me what I should drink. But anyway, yes.
I am not touching that one, and neither is he.
I'm going to flip this
You
table
can
over.
tell we're married. We know better.
Yeah, we know better. We know better than to argue. You're right, Michelle. We don't know anything. I do know how to open a can, which I'm going to do in just a minute.
Woo-hoo!
After
Of
I
whoop
thank
ass?
What?
Of whoop ass?
No, whoop ass. My whoop ass can is always half off.
Oh, okay.
It's like one of those soups that you heat in the microwave. I have to peel the lid back halfway, so the whoop ass can is always ready to pour out. It's beverage cans that I like to leave closed
Yours doesn't
until ready to
explode
go.
like mine. My whip ass just goes woof.
Oh, listen, that's why I can only leave it half open.
Oh, that makes sense.
Cody has seen my whoop ass open up, and it is not pretty. So I must temper my whoop ass, perhaps with a nice blend of peach puree or something else. I like to keep my whoop ass balanced.
There it is. That's the word for the day.
And that's how we wrap it up. Thank you for joining us. We've been at ERIS Brewery and Cider House, 4240 West Irving Park Road in Chicago, erischicago.com. We are happy to be here. Be sure to support your local brewery and your local cider house, because without you, it's tough going in this business for your favorite breweries or cider houses. Crafty Brewers Tales Behind Craft Beer is produced by award-winning producer Cody Goff, who now is hammered. And if you have a brewery or a cidery that you'd like us to talk to, or if you're a brewer or a cider maker that thinks, hey, they didn't go after Michelle and she makes cider, we'll go on and talk to them, then by all means, drop us an email at craftybrewerspod@gmail.com.
If you like this episode, please text a friend about it.
Yes.
Just find the little share button on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube or wherever. Just share it. Text a friend that you think would be interested in learning about cider or likes to drink or is looking for a new spot in Chicago to check out. Just text them and just be like, check out this episode. I think you'll like it. Put it on in the car next time you drive somewhere, put it on the background while you're cooking or whatever. It's a really good episode.
It is a really good episode. Thanks again to Michelle Foik, co-owner of ERIS Brewery and Cider House in Chicago, for not only entertaining us, but educating us and giving me another vice that I get to contend with.
Yes.
This is fantastic. I'm Brian Noonan. That's Cody Goff. Cody, any last words?
I'm nothing to. I can't. I need to
Speechless.
eat. I need to put something in my mouth right now.
No, I'm not going to do it. It's too easy. Good night. Cheers.
Yeah, you never want to end a podcast with, I need to put something in my mouth.
I need to put something in my mouth.